From the very, very bottom of Chaf Testament B?
Oh.
Okay, which one? Good thing oh, okay, great. Okay, so the Mishnah said, Amar Rabbi Elazar lo hiskin Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai el Yavne bilvad. So it's only in Yavne, he says, that they made the special takana to blow the shofar on Shabbos, like it did in Yerushalayim or the Beis Hamikdash. Amar lo echad Yavne v'echad kol makom sheish lo bezdin. And he said to Rabbi Elazar, no, it's not true. It's anywhere that there was a bezdin, whether that's 23 or whether that's 3 mumchim. I think there's a machlokas. So Gemara says, hold on a second. This sounds like the exact beginning of the Mishnah. But now we're making a two different things. So Amar Hainu Tanakama, right? At the beginning we said that they that Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai said Kol Makom Sheish Bezdin, anywhere there's a Bezdin. So now it sounds like it's different people saying something the same. So what's going on? So the Gemara explains Ikabenayu Beidina de Akroi. There was a Bezdin which was not regularly in session. So according to the Tanakama, that is going to be enough to blow. But according to the Achbirim over here, it is not. So then the Mishnah continues and says, Amrlo echad yavna echad kol makom sheyesh bo bezdin. So they're going to be blowing. Question is, when exactly are they going to be blowing? What is the relationship exactly between the bezdin and the people who are blowing? So Amar Huna v'im bezdin. So Huna says there's a major clause which we need to add over here. It's now on the very top of Lamed Amud Aleph. Which is not only do you have to be in a city where there is a bezdin, however that bezdin is defined, but you need to actually be in front of the bezdin when you blow, which really makes a lot of sense because the whole reason why we have this takana in the first place is because we're afraid that people are going to not be sure how to blow the shofar, so they're going to carry the shofar to ask somebody what to do. So what exactly is the point of having this whole takana? If people can blow if they want, they're still gonna carry on their own. So the halacha Rav Huna says that they're only blowing the shofar in front of the bezdin itself. Otherwise, no one's blowing. That way, we're keeping things under control, making sure nobody violates carrying on Shabbos. So, right, my in bezdin, different bezdin, you're doing it in front of bezdin. Lafukish lo b'fnei bezdin delo. You're not blowing the shofar if you're not in front of bezdin. Now, Rava is going to ask the question. This base of Rava says if we look carefully at the Mishnah of Brisa, which is going to quote a few lines, we're going to see another way to understand the additional restriction that was placed on these other places of the blowing shofar on Shabbos. Let's see. He says, well, the Mishnah told us the Udzos Haisa Yerushalayim Yisira Al Yav. So the Mishnah when it began, it told us that they would blow in Yavne, in Yerushalayim, anywhere where there was a bezdin. And then the Mishnah ended by saying, additionally, Yerushalayim had something extra over Yavne, which was in Yerushalayim, you could blow wherever you saw, wherever you in the line of sight, but Yavne was only by the bezdin. So the Rebbe says, well, hold on a second. Right? He asks on the Rav Huna that if what the Mishnah meant was just to tell me that they are not going to blow unless they're in front of the bezdin, so it should not have said, furthermore, you only blow in front of bezdin. Should have said, this is the thing. This is the thing which is different between Yavne and between Yerushalayim and other places where there is a bezdin. So the Rebbe continues, it must mean that the Mishnah has some other restriction in mind besides Rav Huna's suggestion about bifnei bezdin. What is that other restriction? Let's see. He's going to keep going. And he says, so El Yerushalayim token yachidin, Yavne in token yachidin. So maybe you'd suggest that in Yerushalayim they'd blow even if people were davening on their own or blowing shofar on their own. It's like the Chabad situation, all the street corners. Yavne in token yachidin, and then Yavne they'd only blow if they were together. So the Gemara says, hold on a second, Yavne in token yachidin. So Rava has this ready to go. It's not true. It seems like they did blow on an individual basis in Yavne. Why? Because Fahaki Asar Yitzchak or Yosef, and Yitzchak or Yosef showed up. So he told us, Amaki Masayim Shlicha the Tzibura Tekiya Yavne. So they had a tradition that when the Chazan finished, or the Baal Tocheya finished his shofar blowing in Yavne, Lo Shama Inish Kol One Mikol Tekuaya Dechidai. So after the Baal Tocheya finished blowing, you couldn't hear yourself. You couldn't hear your own voice because there was such a loud sound from all of the other Yechidim who are blowing shofar. So the Gemara continues.
All over the town.
No, but that's under after.
Yeah, so we'll Tosfos is going to flag this, and we'll mention in 1 second. So Rava finishes up his perspective, and we're trying to figure out what exactly are the restrictions on blowing shofar in Yavne. So Rava concludes his attack and says, El Lav, Dibi Yerushalayim token, Bein Bizman Bezdin, Bein Shalo Bizman Bezdin. Maybe we see from here that you could blow wherever you want. It's just a question of timing, and that in Yerushalayim you can blow shofar even after the Bezdin finishes. You know, it's probably like the longest davening in town. It's probably at the Sanhedrin. So by the time they finish and they go home for lunch, then already it's time to go. My dad grew up in YU, so he said between the lunch, the davening, and the kiddush in between, they didn't go home for lunch till like 3:30. So maybe that's what the situation was in Yerushalayim. But by the time they're done, by then you can't do it anymore. That's what Rav suggests, and that would be the difference between Yerushalayim and everywhere else. The Yavne Bizman Bezdin, Shlo Bizman Bezdin Lo. Once the Bezdin in Yavne went home, you can't do it anymore. Ha Bizman Bezdin Mia Token Afil Shlo Bezdin. So Rav finishes up, right? It sounds in here they're blowing shofar. It sounds like they're blowing it on their own all over the town. Even in Yavne. So, you have to stop by 2 o'clock once the Bezdin goes home. But until then, it sounds like you could blow wherever you want in the city. So the Gemara says, no, we're just unimpressed with Rav's whole question. And we just say no. Deal with Yerushalayim token, Beimut Bezdin, Bein Shlof Bezdin, Yavne in, Shlof Bezdin lo. Gemara says, we're not impressed with Rav's question. Rav understands, and they would not blow in Yavne unless they were in front of the Bezdin. So Tosfos asks, wait a second, what was happening with all those guys who were you couldn't hear your own voice. So Tosfos says it seems like what happened was people knew they were going to be late. A lot of people were late. I can identify, and they would all people who missed the davening at the minyan in front of the Bezdin. So they would just come afterwards all day long. People are flocking to the Bezdin to chap Tkiyah shofar, and you have Yechidim who are blowing there all day long. But it's only happening in front of the Bezdin. Okay. So that's the first major piece of the Gemara. Rav Huna stands. They would only blow in front of the Bezdin on Shabbos. Now the Gemara says on the first wide line that there was another perspective about this whole statement. There were those who said Rav Huna was never talking about Rosh Hashanah. He was talking about the other case where they blow the shofar, and that is on Yom Kippur at the Yovel. Right. So on the Yovel, they would blow shofar. Cross them Dror, right? It's like the American thing, left freedom ring. That comes from over there. What? My camera's turned off? Yeah, it's because the battery's dying over here. Do people need to see my mask as I go?
You can also.
Thank you for telling me. All right, Baruch Hashem. Yeah, like more oxygen intake, so you spit up faster. Good. So the Gemara now says, so you can ask about the Hadar of Huna Ahad of Siv, second white line. Yom Kippurim Taviu Shofar B'chol Aretz Echem. So you're blowing the shofar right on Yom Kippur to ring in the Yovel. Melamed Shekol Yachad Yachad Chayav L'Skawa. So every individual has an obligation to blow. Amar Huna Ve'im Bezdin. You're blowing shofar with the Bezdin. What does it mean by Ve'im Bezdin? Bizman Bezdin. So here this is the reverse, right? In the previous Gemara, we had Rava suggesting that you blow at the same time as the Bezdin, but you can blow on your own. And Rav Huna said no, you have to be there. Now we're flipping it. Rav Huna says on Yovel, you blow at the same time as the Bezdin, but you don't need to be there. Bizman Bezdin, Lafugish, Bizman Bezdin, the low. And now everything is backwards. Mason, Rava says, hold on a second. Tekiyas, now the Gra takes Rosh Hashanah, but so for sure, Tekiyas Yovel, Dochas a Shabbos, you blow it even on Shabbos. Anything happens once every 50 years, you're going to do it on Shabbos. Big Vulin, Ish Ubeso. So it happens each man in his household, right? It's Kislev, so that sounds like the Halachos Chanukah, right? Like a trivia question. You have Ner Ish Ubeso, you can ask people what else is done Ish Ubeso, and the answer is going to be blowing the shofar for Yovel. So Gemara just asks, what does that mean exactly? My Ish Ubeso. What does it mean a man and his household? Ilema Ish the Ishto. It means a man and his wife, because a person's house can be a euphemism for his wife. Isisa mimachayva, but who says that women are chayav to blow the shofar for Yovel? It's a positive time down commandment. Women are exempt from positive time down commandments, so obviously they don't have to blow the shofar on Yovel. Elalav ish bibeso. It means a person in his house, filu Shelo Bezan Bezdin. So right, it means you do it at home, even if the Bezdin is no longer in session. So that's Rava's question on Rav Huna. Rav Huna was telling us you only blow the shofar when the Bezdin is in session. And Rava is saying, no, maybe you blow it all day long. That's the halacha of Ish Ubeisa. And Gemara just says, no, Yolam Bisman Bezdin, which is not impressed with this question, and you're only blowing the shofar, you're blowing it at home on Yom Kippur, but you're only doing it when the Bezdin is in session. What exactly in session means, we'll talk about in a couple of lines. Now, the Gemara loads up another kasha. Basic of Sheshes. Shabbat Hayovel Rosh Hashanah. Let's kill the brachos. You want to talk about the relationship between blowing shofar and Yovel, blowing shofar Rosh Hashanah? When it comes to the shofar blast, when it comes to the brachos, it's the same. Elash Yovel token Baby Bezin Shekid Shabbos Achodesh Baby Bezin Shekid Shabbos Achodesh. When you were talking about the Yovel, so any Bezin doesn't have to be the Sanhedrin Hagadol, which was in charge of declaring the new moon. Any Bezin will blow shofar. The kol yachad v'yachad chayav l'skoa, and every individual has an obligation to blow. The Rosh Hashanah, the imagery of everybody blowing the shofar to bring in the freedom. It's very powerful. The Rosh Hashanah lo token al bezin shekid shabbos hachodesh. But on Rosh Hashanah, you're only blowing, excuse me, if it's the bezin which actually sanctified the moon, which really makes a lot of sense if you think about it, because these guys are the ones who know for sure that it's actually Rosh Hashanah, right? Every other bezin, it's Shabbos. They do not know if it's Rosh Hashanah or not because how would they have gotten the news so quickly? There are no, WhatsApps or whatever exactly. Sorry, being sent out. So it's only the ones who actually received the Eidim who know it's Rosh Hashanah. So they're the ones who are going to blow on Shabbos. So, second, where did I go? Got so excited. Anyone else on the place? Yeah, come on. It's not good for me. It's testing everybody. Okay, fine. So yes, they have a little Ein Mishpat Ches over there, 10 lines down or so on the wide lines. The Ein Kol Yachav Yachal Chayav L'Skoa, and on Rosh Hashanah, not every individual has to blow. So my Ein Kol Yachav Yachal Chayav L'Skoa, Elam to be Yovel Token Yachid in Rosh Hashanah, Ein Token Yachidin. You want to tell me what this means? Is that in Rosh Hashanah they wouldn't blow on their own, but by the Yovel, the Hak Yasser Yitzchak Bar Yosef, we heard about this before. Amak Yavim B'Sayim Sheichel Tzibur Tziyas V'Yavna Lo Shama Enish Kol Onimikal Tekiyu Dechabre. We see they did blow on their own on Rosh Hashanah. So when the Brisa said that on Rosh Hashanah they did not blow on their own, but by Yovel they did, what does it mean? Elalav, they have the little bracket to Ilu. The Ilu Yovel token Bain Bezan Bezin, Mishal Bezan Bezin, Rosh Hashanah Bezan Bezin, Mishal Bezan Bezin. Lo. What it must mean is that everyone blows on their own, but on Rosh Hashanah you blow on your own only in front of Bezin. By Yovel, you blow on your own even if you're not in front of Bezin, which is exactly the opposite, even at the time of Bezin. That's against Rav Huna. Rav Huna said on the Yovel, you only blow the shofar at the time when the Bezin is in session. So Gemara now says no. Right, two lines below that the Ilu with the brackets low. The Olam Bizman Bezdin, it was only during the time when Bezdin was in session. Here's how you should read the Brisa. The Yovel, when we're talking about blowing shofar on the Yovel and Yom Kippur fell out on Shabbos that year, Bizman Bezdin, or even any year, Bizman Bezdin token, Bain Bifnei Bezdin, Bain Shalo, Bifnei Bezdin. So the difference is that for Yovel, you'll blow shofar at home, right? But it has to be when Bezdin is in session. Rosh Hashanah token, Bizman Bezdin, Hu Bifnei Bezdin. Rosh Hashanah, you need to blow both when the Bezdin is in session, and you need to blow in front of the Bezdin itself. Itmar Nami, we have a corresponding Aramaic statement. Amar Rechia Bar Gamza Rabbi Yosef Ben Shmuel Amar Revi. So we have a tradition from Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. Ein token ela kolzman shebezdin yoshvin. You only blow shofar when the Bezdin is in session. Now, Gemara's gonna have a classic Gemara question. Bayer Bezera. Ninaru lama v'lo amdu ma'u. So you have that after Volat Sion period where people are all getting up, putting away their tefillin, and everyone's standing around and moving out, but they're still around. So then what's the halacha? Ma'u. Bezdin yoshvin v'inan. We need them to literally be sitting down. You need them in around. V'ha'ika. They're there. Maybe you need them to actually be, actively in session, and they're about to get out the door, and they're no longer taking cases or anything anymore. So you don't have that anymore. And the Gemara answer is best whatever. Take you, we're not sure. So don't do it at that, 3-minute period of time. Exactly. Okay. Wrapping up from the last Mishnah, the Mishnah said, here's the difference between Yerushalayim and Yavne, that Yerushalayim is whenever you could see, you would blow shofar, right? According to most of the Rishonim, it means you could see the base of Mikdash, but according to the Rambam, it means you could see all of Yerushalayim. It's very important to the Rambam that it really means all of Yerushalayim. So now the Gemara just clarifies. It does not literally mean anywhere in where you could see it. And we think of Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim is a hill, and there are hills and valleys, and there are rivers and streams. So all this is relevant. So let's see. The Gemara says, Roeh, Prat Liosheves Benachal. So somebody could be all the way down in the valley, and they're not able to actually see what's happening up above. So they're not going to blow shofar on Shabbos. Shomas, Prat Liosheves Broshahar. So if someone is up, they can be up on the top of Har Hazesim, so they can see the base of Mikdash, but they're so far away they cannot hear what's going on there. They will not blow shofar. Krova Prat Liosheves Chutz Litzchum. If someone cannot reach Yerushalayim because they're more than 2,000 amos away, right? Someone who's on one of the hills surrounding Yerushalayim Harim says Izla, surrounded by mountains, but they will not blow shofar. Finally, the Yechol Lavo Prat Lamafsik Banahara. Right, that you have to be able to come there to exclude somebody who is blocked by the river. Sometimes the streams, the Gichon spring, especially in the springtime, can flood, and then no one's crossing the river, so they're not going to blow shofar either. Okay. All right, good to know. I'll take it. If I was drinking coffee, I would probably get it. So now the Mishnah says, hey, you guys are holding me up now, not the other way around. So the Mishnah says, back in the good old days, the time of the base of Mikdash, they would take the Daled Minim on Sukkot, all 7 days in the base of Mikdash, only 1 day in the Medina, right? And this is where the Rambam says that Mikdash means Yerushalayim and Medina means outside Yerushalayim. And that's why you have some people nowadays who live in Yerushalayim who on other days of Sukkot will have to go into the old city of Yerushalayim, right? Because that way they think that maybe they're fulfilling the biblical obligation to take a lulav and Esrog, according to the Rambam. The Mishnah continues. Baruch Hashem. Look, chumras are important in Judaism. So Mishnah says, Mishachar Beis Hamikdash Shisna Yocham and Zakai Sheidu of Nital Medina Shiva Zeicher LaMikdash. Yocham and Zakai said after the destruction of Yerushalayim that they should begin taking lulav and Esrog all 7 days, even outside of Yerushalayim, to remember the Mikdash. V'sheyeh Yom HaNeif Kulo Asa. The day of waving should be entirely forbidden. What are we talking about? The 16th of Nisan was the day where they would bring the Karban HaOmer. Before you bring the Karban HaOmer, you're not allowed to eat the new grain. You're not allowed to eat Chadash. So once they brought the Omer, you could. So now they're not bringing a Karban HaOmer anymore because there's no base of Mikdash. So Yochanan Zakkai said that they should not eat Chadash the entire day of the 16th of Nisan, which the Gemara is going to clarify what that means in a couple of lines. So first, the Gemara says, Minalan davdinan zecha lemikdash. How do we know that you have to make a memorial for the Mikdash? So I would have thought this is just to remember the halacha, remember what to do. But the Gemara makes it sound like something fundamental. The Gemara says, Amar Kra. Navi Yirmiyahu said, most of Yirmiyahu is very depressing, but there are 3 chapters of Yirmiyahu, Perek Lamed Aleph, Perek Lamed Beis, which are the chapters of comfort, right? That's where you have, Rachel, Mervat, Galbanea, and all the nice songs from Yirmiyahu are from this little. Exactly. I was going to do it, but 2 in the morning for me. So the Gemara says, what does the pasuk say? Damakra, Ki ale aruchala mimakosayach erpech neum Hashem. Right? I'm going to heal you from your wounds. Kinidacha karulach. Right? Those who were pushed away from you will call you. Sionhi doresh ein la. So right now, Yerushalayim's enemies are saying that nobody's calling after Yerushalayim. Doresh ein la. That's what the enemies are saying. Yerushalayim has nobody calling after it. So what do we have to do? We need to fight back against the enemies of Yerushalayim. Today, people say Yerushalayim is left alone. We need to say no. We need to fight back against that. And the way we do that is Michal Dabaya Trisha. We need to seek out Yerushalayim to combat those who say that Yerushalayim is abandoned. And that is why we need to Zeicher LaMikdash. Right? We're going to blow shofar. We're going to take lulav and esrog to dafka, remember Yerushalayim at a time when all the enemies say that it is forgotten. Okay. Now, moving on to Chadash, right? We said Yom HaNeif Kulo Asa, the whole day of the 16th of Nisan, you cannot blow, you cannot eat Chadash, according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. So Gemara says, my timer, what is going on here? I mean, it's it takes a lot to ask the Jews from eating food. We're waiting for this for all day long. What's going on? So Gemara says, Meheri bana Beis Hamikdash, Hashem, the Beis Hamikdash will be rebuilt speedily in our days. Yomru, and what's going to happen? Yom Rishtak and Milo Achalnu Beher Mizrach. People will say, let's say, before the Beis Hamikdash was rebuilt, when there was no Karban Omer, so we ate Chadash as soon as daybreak happened. Because right now, what they're assuming is that there are two possible things to allow Chadash. When there is a Karban Omer, you'll eat Chadash once the carbon is brought. If there's no Karban Omer, you'll bring it as soon as it turns to the 16th. So we're going to fall into a trap because all the 2,000 years of the Galus, we'll get used to eating Chadash on the 16th of Nisan as soon as the day breaks. So we'll do that this year also. It's like amazing to think Mashiach is going to come and we're not going to realize we have to change a whole lot of things. But they're not going to realize that in the previous years when there was no Karban Omer, the Chadash was allowed by the breaking of the day. But now that the Beis Hamikdash is rebuilt, Mashiach has come, we're bringing the Karban Omer. You need to wait for the Karban Omer to eat Chadash. And therefore, Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai said, just don't eat the Chadash the whole day of the 16th. So the Gemara says, well, hold on a second. When exactly is the Beis Hamikdash being rebuilt? And this is going to cause a problem. Let's see. The Mivni Ema. So when the Beis Hamikdash being rebuilt? Ilema Ivni B'Shitza. So if it is being rebuilt on the 16th of Nisan itself, that's too late. Hare Heir Mizrachitir. Right? It's like the most exciting day ever in Judaism. In the morning, we're allowed to eat Chadash. In the afternoon, Beis Hamikdash is rebuilt. Best day ever, but there shouldn't be any concern. So Ela de Ivni Be'Chamisa. Let's say that the Beis Hamikdash was built on the 15th of Nisan. So if that's the case, Mechatzos Hayom Lahalam Nishtari. So then Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai is way too machmir. He should not have prohibited eating Chadash all day long. He only should have prohibited eating Chadash until midday. Because Hatanan, Harachokin Mutar Mechatzos Hayom Lahalam Lafisha in Bezim Atzz Limbo. The people who are far away from Yerushalayim in the time of the Mikdash, they would always eat Chadash by the time of Chatzos by midday, because they could assume that the Karban Omer had been brought by midday. So Iman of Shach, either there was no Beis Hamikdash and you can go from daybreak, or there was a Beis Hamikdash and you can go from Chatzos, because then you could assume that our Omer has been brought. Why does Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai prohibit eating Chadash the entire day? By the way, there's a huge machlokas in Rishonim whether the third Beis Hamikdash will be rebuilt by man or be rebuilt by God. And Rashi quotes this as a proof that it's going to be miraculously rebuilt, because halacha is you're not supposed to build the Beis Hamikdash during Yantif. On Yantif, you're not supposed to build the Beis Hamikdash at night. So Rashi just says, you see from here, that the third Beis Hamikdash will not be rebuilt by us, but it's going to descend from Shamayim. Okay, the Rambam disagrees. So the Gemara then concludes the explanation. Lo nitzrucha de'ivni b'chamisar samach l'shkiyas hachama. Right, it's amazing. Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai was so excited about Yerushalayim being rebuilt, the Beis Hamikdash being rebuilt, that he thought out to this level of detail. What will happen if the Beis Hamikdash is rebuilt in the end of the day of the 15th of Nisan? Then we're going to have to bring the Omer, but we're going to be very behind. We're not going to be able to do it that night because we're not going to, we're not going to take the Omer that night. The Beis Hamikdash will just be rebuilt now. Yinami Divni B'Laila, it'll be rebuilt that night. So we'll have an obligation to bring the Omer. We have a Beis Hamikdash. We'll not have time to bring the Omer because the Beis Hamikdash was just rebuilt 5 minutes ago. And for that situation, he said you should not eat Chadash the entire day of the 16th of Nisan. So Amar of Nachman Yitzchak, Amar Yochanan Zakkai, turn the page. She just Rabbi Yehuda Amar, right? So he says, no. We're not going with such an exotic concern that they prohibited eating Chadash an entire day because maybe the Beis Hamikdash will be rebuilt the night of the 15th of or the night of the 16th of Nisan. No. This was in the view of Rabbi Yehuda. What is that? Let's see. Damar ad etzem hayom hazeh. So the Torah says about the prohibition to Chadash. So that extends until the etzem hayom hazeh. Normally we say etzem hayom hazeh means chatzos. What does Rabbi Yehuda say? So ad atzmo shayom v'kasavar ad bechlal. Rabbi Yehuda understands it means the entire day. Just the pasuk says you have to wait the entire day to eat Chadash. There's no So misavar lakavase. Oh, wait a second. Does Rabbi Zakkai agree with Rabbi Yehuda? Maflik palagale. They disagree. Now this cannot be a real live disagreement because Rabbi Zakkai is one of the earlier Tanaim and Rabbi Yehuda is a Talmud of Rabbi Akiva. But the Gemara Rashi flags that right. The Gemara spells it out. It's not. Our mission told us no eating Chadash the entire day after the Shach Beis Hamikdash. Amar Yehuda, what do you mean there's a Gzeira Midra Banan? No, Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai thought that without the Omer, you could biblically eat Chadash when the day breaks. Yehuda says no. Unless you have the carbon Omer, you cannot eat Chadash until the day ends. There's a biblical prohibition all day long. So it really makes a whole lot of sense. So when I say Lahasar Yehudahu dikatai iu. No. Rabbi Yehuda was not arguing with Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai. Really, Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai agreed. But Rabbi Yehuda did not understand what Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai meant. There was a misreporting of the Mishnah, right? So Rabbi Yehuda sent in a letter to the editor to correct it, and let's just get the record straight. No fake news. What's the real story? Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai. Midraban, he thought Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai said it was a No, the Loi, Midoraisa Kamar. Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai said we now have a very serious halachic problem. For 420 years, we've been having a carbon Omer, and we've been eating Chadash as soon as the Omer was brought. Now that it's gone, he says, Midoraisa, we need to wait all day long. Well, the Gemara says, hold on a second. Hiskin Katani. It says he made a decree. You know what decree means? Decree means it's the Rabbanan. So Gemara says, no. My Hiskin, Dorash for Hiskin. He analyzed halacha and he made a new ruling, but this is Midoraisa. Okay, good. Now, awesome. The next which says, so now, the other things which went wrong. So back in the good old days, they would accept testimony all day long on Rosh Hashanah, right? Because who knows if today's going to be the day or not. So what happened? One day, so the Eidim came very, very late today. Leviim, right? So we know Shir Shayu Halavim Omer Beis HaMikdash, when they would bring the carbon Taman and the carbon Musaf, they would sing. So there would be a special shira for the days of for the days of the Yom Tovim. So the Levium sang the wrong song because they thought it was a week, or seemingly they thought it was a weekday, and turns out it was Rosh Hashanah. So what did it say? So they said from now on we're only accepting witnesses until Mincha. Once we bring the carbon Tamid Shalbein Harbayim, which we know is established parallel to Mincha, then no more accepting witnesses, which is really interesting that we'll turn them away from declaring to Rosh Hashanah. We're that concerned about the song. So yeah, so we'll see. We got to figure out what they're going to do. Because what about the carbon musaf? Like, what do they actually do that day? So we'll see. We'll talk about it. Yeah, we'll talk about it. So the Mishnah then says, okay, like what happens, right? Like, come on, are they going to be treating Mamash Day like a weekday? If witnesses show up and say it's Rosh Hashanah, no way. So the Mishnah says, Nogan Oso Hayom Kodesh. They would treat that day as a day of Rosh Hashanah, Umachar Kodesh, and they would treat the next day as Rosh Hashanah, good old fashioned Yom Tov Sheni. Mishachar of everyone's favorite halacha. Mishachar Beis HaMikdash. Once Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, that's what we're talking about this year. His Yochanan Zakkai, Shivakaban Edus Kodesh, Kol Hayom. Yochanan says, look, now we no longer have to worry about the Beis HaMikdash, unfortunately, and the Shira. So let us accept the testimony of the witnesses all day long. So the Gemara now asks, Ma Kilku Halavim Bashir. All right. So what exactly did they do wrong? That they sang the wrong song apparently because the Edom came so late. So Hacha Tardimu. Here in good old Babylonia, we explain the Mishnah. Shelo Amru Shira Kol Ikr. They didn't sing any song. They weren't sure what to do. Rabbi, should we sing weekday song? Should we sing Yantiv song? I don't know. It's a Safek B'Machmir. Don't do anything. So they just didn't sing at all. Exactly. That was very unfortunate because they ended up missing the chance to sing the proper song. However, Rabbi Zera, right, who's from Eretz Yisrael, he says no. Amar sha'amru shira shel chol im tamat shel bein arbayim. Not they sang the wrong song, rather they sung the song for a weekday. Amar Rabbi Zera la'ava brei. So Rabbi Zera, the whole base matters against Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Zera comes to Eretz Yisrael. They sang the weekday song. All of the Bavli and the base matters saying no, they didn't do anything. So Rabbi Zera is annoyed. So Rabbi Zera says to his son Ava, okay, nowadays it's a girl's name, but in his time it was a boy's name. So he says, Huk Tani Lahu. Go tell those Babylonians this brisa. I'm not making it up. Hiskinu shaloyu makablan edos hachodesh alakadei sheyehei shehus hayom lahakriv tmidin umusafin vinis chayem. So they have time to bring the tamid and the musaf and the libations. The lomar shira below shibush. The brisa says that they would have time to sing without a mistake. Now, what does it mean without a mistake? Says Rabbi Zera. Amor Shira Dechol, Hainadika Shibush. If they're going to sing the wrong song, like I claim they did, that's a mistake. If you want to say, like the Babylonians, that was Shev al Tasa, they did nothing, my Shibush Ika. What's the mistake? Shev al Tasa, they didn't make a mistake. That's why they said Shev al Tasa. So that's a Reserve's proof. That exactly. The Babylonians were not impressed by this proof. They said, what on earth are you talking about? They skipped the song. What big mistake do you have in that? Okay. Now, Mesa of Achbar Huna, Tamid, Shalrashana Shachris, Karp Hilchaso. So in the morning, you bring the Tamid regular standard operations. Musaf Mao, Omer. So now what do you sing? You're bringing the carbon Musaf. What song do you sing? So you say, Harninu, Lukem, Uzenu, Hariu, Loke Yaakov. So, right, where is close? Thursday. It's a Thursday Shir Shayom, right? And you're saying, and you're saying this because it's talking about the Trua, right? Hariu, Loke Yaakov. So, the Mincha Ma'omer, what was the song they would have for Mincha? So you'd sing, Kol Hashem Yachil Midbar, which is Kabbalah Shabbos. But the reason why I do that is because you're referencing the shofar by Matan Torah. Shofar, Rosh Hashanah, shofar, Matan Torah. Exactly. Right? Okay, the Yitzchak, there's a lot of themes going on with that shofar. So now the Gemara says, now you do Thursday. So in the morning, you're already saying the Thursday Shir Shayom. So what do you do for Musaf? You're not going to double up. It's going to get boring. So what do you do? Shashir Shalo Harninu Lakim Rozinu. In the morning, you're already saying Harninu. So lo hey omer b'shachar is Harninu b'pnei shachoz v'kovos aparik. You're not going to say that in the morning because you're going to say it for Musaf. Elama omer hasirosi mesevel shichmo. So which is referring to very good. Yosef leaving prison, and Yosef left prison on Rosh Hashanah. It's fascinating. Rachel was remembered to conceive on Rosh Hashanah, and Yosef escapes from prison, taken out of prison on Rosh Hashanah. So what happens if witnesses came after Tamar Shal Shachar? So in the morning, we already said there was Thursday Shir Shayom because we thought it was a weekday. So then you'll say Harninu, you'll say Harninu at Musaf, even though you're going to repeat. Now, just a couple more lines. If you want to say whenever we're stop, we just say the weekday one, Amar, Omro V'Koflo. You want to say like the Bavliim that you'll shave al tase my Omro mine. So why? It sounds like they went for it. They gambled on Thursday Chol, and then they doubled it. So why did they do that? They should have shaved al tase. So where it says no. Choz Omro V'Koflo Shani Hasam the Shira the Yomeki. They're not going to shave al tase. It's not making a mistake. Right, worse comes worse, they'll say the same thing twice, so it's redundant, but that's not an error. It still fits into the theme of Rosh Hashanah, and therefore that's going to be okay. We're not going to shave on that.